I'm Linda Pellerin, the Executive Director of the Shepherd Center of Charlotte, and welcome to Solutions for Seniors. The Shepherd Center of Charlotte is an organization that is designed to help seniors remain in their homes for as long as possible. And this program is one of the things that we like to have in the community to help them to that end. And today, or this evening, we have as our guests, we have Salem Suber and Chris Reed. They are with Southminster Retirement Community. And the reason they're on the show is because back in July, we had a chef war competition. And the Southminster, Chris and Southminster won the competition. So that means that of the 4 senior retirement communities that were competing for this, Southminster had the best food. First of all, tell me what you served back in July for the competition.
Oh my goodness, we had a fabulous menu. We did a Chinese 5-spice short rib that was braised with a quick kimchi salad that was made with some of the vegetables from our garden at Southminster. And for dessert, we did a raspberry Newton, homemade Newton, with the shortbread. So it was pretty great.
It was pretty great because you know, we had judges from the community. One of the judges was Jean Lempel, and he is the head chef at Wachovia or Wells Fargo. And we had someone from Johnson & Wales, whose name escapes me at the moment. I want to say Carrie Leonard. Mm-hmm. It came to me just as I was saying I couldn't remember it. And we also had Kathleen Purvis from the Charlotte Observer. Mm-hmm. So the judges were pretty distinguished. And we also had over 100 seniors attend this event, and we had the seniors voting too, especially on the desserts. So it was a really good event. And I really wanted to talk a little bit about what a senior community, as a head chef for a senior community, what do you have to keep into consideration when you're preparing food for the seniors?
Well, we have a large population, around 300. So of course there's a diverse palate range there, and all different ages that are involved. So some generations that would have been more accustomed to boiled meats, and a newer generation that's looking for a little bit more Hoyt cuisine. So we're trying to always keep that in consideration when we're building our menus out. Some of the other things that we have to be cognizant of is, you know, their dietary needs. There's some special dietary needs that people have at that age. Of course, we know all the standards. Some are diabetic, some have heart disease, hypertension, but there's also other things that a lot of chefs wouldn't consider that work in mainstream restaurants, which is people that have problems with their teeth, or at this point in their lives they are not absorbing enough vitamins or minerals, especially B vitamins. So very important to be feeding them a wide range of antioxidants and phytochemicals in fresh food because their absorption is a little bit limited. So those are some of the things that I'm considering as I'm building menus out and feeding the people at Southminster.
Now, I've been to Southminster and I've had some of the really good food that's over there and everything, but I noticed when you go to the dining room, I've only been there for lunch. When you go to the dining room, you pretty much can order off of a menu, and there's like a huge salad bar and everything. The point I'm trying to make is, if I'm living there and I have dietary issues, what's to stop me, if I'm a diabetic, what's to stop me from running up there and getting the cheesecake one day or something?
Well, we do have a full-time dietitian on staff there who helps counsel our residents and make better choices in their diet. And they ask me questions every day. So we circulate through the dining rooms, Salem, myself, and our chef de cuisine, Greg Balch. So we spend a lot of time talking to our residents and helping to steer them in the right direction. But I don't think that we really limit them in terms of what they can eat. They make those decisions on their own, as they would if they were in their own apartment or their own cottage.
Right.
By offering a wide variety, I feel like, especially if the variety includes a lot of fresh vegetables and lean proteins, that's going to limit the consumption of high sodium, you know, saturated fat and processed food items that they would have maybe if they were going out to eat or eating microwave food at home. So we keep the menus as fresh as possible, so that keeps our residents as healthy as possible too.
Now I'm going to tell you, and thank God my parents don't live around here because I use them on the show all the time as examples. My parents live in a small community in Vermont, and by the way, the flooding did go through their area, but they're fine. They're fine. And when I go to visit my parents, I am really hard pressed to find anything fresh in their little apartment. They don't buy it because and when I ask my mom about it, she says, oh, it's so expensive and we just can't eat it fast enough. And so, you know, they never have lettuce. I can never make a fresh salad there. They usually do have a little bit of fruit, but it's usually like maybe an apple or maybe a banana or something. But, you know, cucumbers, I mean, anything fresh. You know, they eat mostly out of cans, and sometimes there's something frozen. I mean, she makes a lot of soups and things like that, but, you know, it's not usually made with fresh ingredients.
Right.
And I don't know if it's because they're both 86. I don't know if it's because that's, you know, I know growing up, you know, we had things in the house like Tang and instant coffee, you know, and those are things that are not in my house these days. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if it's that generation. Do you find that
well, I think it's interesting, you know, when you talk about your parents or, you know, my grandparents, you know, they were raised on real food, and that's something that they don't even realize now. You know, they were living sustainable lifestyles and green lifestyles before that was a hot trend. So they know what real food is, and they know what real food tastes like. And as you know, the food culture has evolved in the country, and people have moved towards a more convenient style cuisine, where we find pride in a 10-minute meal versus an hour preparation of a meal. You know, we've gotten away from a lot of that fresh food, and it's hard for seniors once they've made that transition through that food culture to get back to what they knew as children. I mean, just in the same way that it would be difficult for anybody. So I think that one of the limiting factors, as you were mentioning, with it's hard to find anything fresh. I mean, 80% of the time that you spend in the kitchen is cutting the food. It's not actually cooking food. So knife skills are huge, especially as you're dealing with an aging population of people in terms of handling knives and having the strength to do that. And of course, it takes a lot of energy and standing to do that. There's always alternatives in grocery stores, especially in more metropolitan areas that have pre-prepped vegetables. So you can buy the bagged, pre-washed, you know, collards or a carrot mix or a blend of vegetables that's already been cut for you, where then all you have to do is steam or saute those vegetables. But I think a lot of the limitations with seniors is that preparation time, and they lean really heavily on the processed foods, the frozen foods, the canned food, because it is much easier to open, much easier to cook, and fast and convenient. So that is a challenge with, I would imagine, with any aging household. But the dependence needs to be on the younger generation who is there to witness that and to help make suggestions, I think, for our grandparents and our parents.
I know,
to move them back towards fresh food.
When I'm visiting my parents, you know, I take them to the supermarket. I buy all the fresh stuff.
Right.
And my mother will look at me and go, you better be eating this while you're here, because you know,
right.
it's going to go bad.
Some of it, you know, I think that some of it too, when we were talking about the some of the issues with cooking for an aging population, you know, besides diabetes and heart disease and hypertension and all these things, we also have digestive problems, you know, and it sometimes is difficult for them to consume raw vegetables or fruits. You know, an example is cucumbers have an actual enzyme on the skin of the cucumber that can upset people's stomach. So there's certain things that don't translate well, I think, for an elder population. More I think processed food, they can handle it a little bit easier, but you could make grains and you could make wholesome food that is easy on your digestive system too. But I think it takes a little bit of education. I think we've kind of moved away from that that natural knowing of food, you know, that maybe they had or their parents had when they were younger. So
you see, my father actually grew up on a farm, so he knew. I mean, everything was, you know, they were pretty much sustainable there. You know, there was always the vegetable garden. I mean, there were cows there, so they had their own milk. There were chickens, they had their own eggs, and they would slaughter the chickens when they wanted a chicken or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, you know, occasionally they would, if a cow quit milking, they would butcher the cow. And as a child, I grew up around that, you know, witnessing all of
Well,
that.
again, it was sustainable before sustainable was a trend, you know.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
that's something, when I came to Southminster, and one of the reasons I think that Salem brought me on board there was really to move away from all that process stuff. You know, institutions have a terrible reputation at this point. Schools, hospitals, any large community like that has a reputation of highly processed food, mostly frozen cuisine. I mean, their entire infrastructure is normally built around this cuisine in terms of freezer space, deck ovens, the way that you would prepare these already prepared foods. So Salem brought me in really to freshen up and green up the menus at Southminster, and that's been it's not been an easy transition for us because, again, we're dealing with some of the infrastructure parameters of providing a lot of fresh food. But one of the things that I wanted to do immediately when I came aboard there was to start a garden, because I really wanted there to be a connection with what we're putting on plates with what we're really trying to do overall. I wanted people to see a physical manifestation of that process. And so we started a little garden at Southminster, which involves the residents. We have volunteers, and we're harvesting almost every day, even right now. So it's been really exciting to see their excitement with the freshness that's coming out of the garden and the fresh idea of getting back to the farm, you know. So.
And I imagine for a lot of them, they grew up kind of the way I did,
That's right.
where they were around a farm and in gardens and everything. What's in the garden?
Right now, well, we just finished our summer crops. So summer crop, we had several different varieties of heirloom tomatoes. We had squash, zucchini, cucumbers, okra. We have a myriad of different herbs, all on standing beds where our residents that are unable to bend over, they can still participate at standing beds where the herbs are. So everything got pulled out, and we put in 2 beds of sweet potatoes. We also put in another bed of cucumbers because we're still in a time of the year that we can grow cucumbers. We have collard greens, Swiss chards, kale. We have beets. I have 4 different kinds of lettuces, arugula, endive. We also started some late season tomatoes and Brussels sprouts.
Wow.
So
I'm impressed. How about peppers?
Too late for peppers. In the summer we had a couple, but we weren't getting quite enough light. We had eggplant as well in the summertime, and I think the eggplant was kind of shadowing those pepper plants, so we didn't really get a lot of pepper production. But the residents have been a huge part of it in terms of not only the physical labor of it, the people that want to participate in that, but just the rooting on. You know, they've just been super excited about it. And that has created a really great relationship with an organization that we partnered with to start the garden, which is Friendship Trays, which is the largest Meals on Wheels program here in Charlotte. And they had a grant that was, they applied for a grant and received a grant last year from the Women's Impact Fund to create a necklace of gardens around Charlotte that feed into the Meals on Wheels program. So we became one of the necklace gardens at Southminster. So our residents have recently taken a tour of Friendship Trays. And the day that we were there, some of our tomatoes were being processed there onto trays. So that was really exciting for the residents to see our contribution back to Friendship Trays. So
that's really cool.
It is very cool.
Now Salem, Southminster's how old? It's been around for
22 years.
That's what I thought. And I know, you know, we have a computer program there, and it was several years ago, they were doing the whole renovation, and they were, you know, they built more. And every time I went over to talk to our computer class, I would have to go in a different way, and I'd need a map every single time I went over there. But all that's pretty much over now. Everything's been done. In other words, the renovations are all done and everything. But one of the major things, and I think that was like one of the last things, was changing over the whole dining room area and everything. Tell me a little bit about that.
That was a big part of the remodel. Of course, we had a major addition, and in that process, a tremendous remodel from the community areas to our theater, our chapel. Pretty much all of our amenities were a part of that. But one of the things that changed, I think, most dramatically was our dining services. And I arrived last year after that renovation had been complete, and I think one of the primary goals there was to provide more choices, more options, a diversity of venues, a diversity of dining experience, and more options on the menu. I think a lot of traditional retirement communities, no matter what the quality or caliber of management was involved there, all had a rather institutional style of food service. And I think the more progressive communities are moving away from that model. It's one of the reasons I came to Southminster, because I saw an opportunity to be a part of a big change. And if you're in the restaurant business or any business that you're passionate about, to have the opportunity to be a part of a big change and have the satisfaction of real impact on the quality of life there, that was really attractive to me. Adding the bistro, that you've had some experience in the bistro. I don't know if you had breakfast with us. I know you've had lunch.
No, I haven't had breakfast. I would love to come for breakfast. I love breakfast.
Well, it's going very well. We have breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the bistro. Of course, we have our formal dining room, which has a semi-formal and a jacket required area upstairs, which are our larger dining room. And we'll do 6 dinners a week there and brunch on Sunday. And then the bistro is open every day, and we serve 3 meals there. So what we've been able to do is offer a casual environment where you can get, a grilled vegetable panini, a fresh grilled salmon, a burger, a chicken sandwich, a beautiful salad bar, or hot cook-to-order entrees. A fresh North Carolina mountain trout or a flounder meuniere, but more of a diversity of food. So if you want to come from our fitness center and grab some lunch, you're going to feel comfortable in the bistro, and it's also a beautiful setting for guests. We just wanted that diversity. I think you had mentioned in speaking to Chris about special dietary needs and what measures we take to help our residents or assist them if, say, they're diabetic in dessert selections and things like that. I couldn't help but, when I was hearing that, think about how vibrant our community is. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people have the perception of having to take care of seniors, and we have an extraordinary healthcare department, so those needs are met. But the vibrance of that community from 65 to 100 years old, I think is surprising for people who haven't been a part of it. So the idea of giving choices and options to them, because they're going to the finest restaurants in town. Mm-hmm. Some still serve on the board of directors of companies they founded. Some teachers that live with us are still helping tutor at the middle school across the street. Very, very active people. So we really see ourselves in the position of creating the healthiest choices available, guiding and educating in terms of providing information on dietary content, or being able to have knowledgeable servers and knowledgeable managers who can answer those dietary questions, not just our dietitian. Mm-hmm. I think that allows them to make smarter choices without us necessarily being the culinary police.
Mm-hmm. And I should point out that Southminster is for lack of a better term, I know the clinical term, but it's a full-service retirement community. In other words, you can go in there and live independently.
Oh, sure.
And then if you become ill, you can go into assisted living. And then there's I believe you have a memory care unit too, right? Or what do they call it? Medical? I know. I hear different terms.
We call it our healthcare.
Healthcare.
Yeah.
Yes.
For independent living versus assisted living, mm-hmm. And I think continuing care community is a continuing care retirement community, I guess, right. Is the official
right.
term.
So yeah. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that people can go there when you're 65 and still vibrant, and you can become involved in the community and everything, and you can stay there until end of life. I mean, it's someplace where there are other communities in Charlotte, and they may just be independent, where once you become ill, you have to move to a different facility. Mm-hmm. Whereas Southminster is there are several in Charlotte that are they call them CCRCs or mm-hmm. whatever, but continuing care, I guess is what it is. And and Southminster is one of those. So, and
Well, especially, and I think this is a critical value, and I think it's why a lot of our residents like that model, is that you quite frequently you will have a couple where one spouse has health challenges and the other may be as healthy as they were 20 years ago. And this is an opportunity for them also to live their retirement years with dignity together. And I think that has a tremendous impact. And a resident may end up after a medical procedure being in our health center for 3 or 4 weeks and then back in their cottage or back in their apartment, but always right there in the same family, same neighborhood with their friends and their spouse during each stage. And I think that's important. One thing I didn't mention about the conversion in our dining rooms was it was also a step away from something we wanted to distance ourselves as much as possible, and that was any semblance of an institutional model of food service. When you show up for dinner and what you see is what you get, somebody better be fine-tuning the dietary content of every one of those items, because everybody's getting stuck with the same thing. And I think that progressive institutions and retirement communities alike are moving away from that model. You see even hospitals are moving away from that model. And that's why I brought Chris, our sous chef, Greg Bouch, our dining room manager, Rudy Patino. None of these chefs have been in an institutional setting. They've all been in high volume, fine dining, catering. They've been with some great organizations, resorts, independent restaurants, private. I know that you did special catered meals in California for a celebrity clientele. They've got a very diverse background, but none of it came from a very rigid institutional model. And because we're a nonprofit, because we only have one location, if I've got this kind of passion for food, the decisions can be made at the dining room table. When Chris goes through the dining room and she talks to the residents about the menu, and they talk about they haven't had such and such since they were a kid, well, guess what we're having for dinner tomorrow? I mean, it's that kind of a restaurant style of personalized service that we're trying to create. And it is not easy when you produce 550 meals a day, but because we just have this one location and we have some very talented chefs, I think we're pulling it off.
I think we're doing a good job.
Well, I think you are
I think
too.
they're very happy.
Yeah,
We're not content, but I think we're doing a good job.
What I like about it is that you have a vast menu. I mean, like you were saying, and like the institutionalized things, you go in, you have a choice of a meat or maybe a piece of fish or something, and you make maybe 2 choices of vegetable and 1 dessert. And that's not the way it is at Southminster. There's a lot of different choices, that people can make, whether it's in the bistro or the dining room or whatever.
And those choices really are driven by our residents. I mean, they're the ones that make comments, and through their comments, like Salem said, we're building those items in. Or we'll introduce new items. A lot of people in this region have only had okra fried or stewed, and I'm from California, and we roast it there. So we did a roasted okra with pearl onions a couple weeks ago, and people just went ballistic. They thought it was fantastic. They thought it was great. So we get really good feedback on that. We make sure that we keep that going. If we don't get good feedback, we make sure we take it off right away. But we're always trying new things with them to expose them to new ideas and to kind of broaden their offerings of the things that they would choose. So,
yeah. Now I know at Southminster pets are allowed. And do you ever get requests from the residents? Do you have a little something here that I can bring home to?
I haven't personally.
No, thank goodness. But I guess we could do. I think we thought about. Last year we thought about making some homemade dog biscuits. Yeah, as gifts or treats for residents, and we have not followed up on that yet.
We've been pretty busy.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, those gourmet dog biscuits are not the least expensive things in the world either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we should probably. I'm wondering, I guess we'll have to make time for the dogs as well.
I'm kind of sorry I brought it up because now you'll be getting requests because
no, that's okay. We don't
if
mind
your
challenges.
residents watch the show, then they'll be going, hey.
We love that. We love the challenge.
And I love seeing the dogs around there and everything. Of course, you don't see the cats or whatever because they're not out running around like the dogs are or anything like that. For seniors that are living on their own, what do you recommend for them? I know when I went out and had lunch with you, you were saying it's really a good idea to, if you're really busy, and seniors could do this too, maybe if they had, you know, a child or something visiting with them or something, you know, chop up the onions all in one time, put them in the refrigerator, and then when you know, the onions and the peppers and all of that. And I've been doing that, and my husband loves it because I make him cook.
That's right.
You know, he's the one that's retired, so he has to do the cooking. And now I'm like, oh, well, that's in the little red container in the refrigerator, you know, when we're making this tonight. And he's like, oh, that's kind of cool. He doesn't have to do the prep anymore.
Well, I think the advice is the same that I would give to a lot of people that I consult, which is, you know, if you dedicate some time every week to food, it makes the convenience during the week that much closer and reachable for you. If you're spending, my day is Saturday. I go to the farmer's market Saturday morning, I get everything that I need, I wash it all, I cut it all, prep it all out, put it in bags or containers, label it, and I come home, I work long days at Southminster, I come home and I have already a bag of cut something that I can just saute in a pan and I'm ready to go.
Right.
But I think the most important thing is for people to remember to eat colorfully. I mean, you're not, at a certain stage in life, you're just not absorbing as much as you could be. So eating a colorful diet, I think, is really important to maintaining your vitamins and your minerals in your system and staying healthy. So lots of phytochemicals, spending one day a week on your food prep, and then inviting your family over to help you and build that community with your family to help do some of that prep for you.
Well, believe it or not, our time is almost up. So I'd like to thank you, Chris Reed,
Thank you for having me.
Salem Suber from Southminster Retirement Community. And a couple dates I want everybody to keep in mind. October 17th, we're having a flu shot clinic at Pritchard Memorial Baptist Church. It's during our Adventures in Learning program, but you don't have to be involved in the program to come out and get a flu shot. And that's being sponsored by CVS Pharmacy. Also, we're having a shredding event. So if you want to have all of your personal documents shredded, that is October 22nd at Trinity Presbyterian Church. So that's about it for today. Look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you.